Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Dear brothers and sisters and friends, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. In the 14th century, there was a technique that was used on people who were declared heretics by the Spanish after in the 16th century. Some of whom had been Muslims, some of whom had been Jews and so forth. And this technique was called tortura del agua, which is described as, or translated from Spanish as, torture of the water torture. Today it's known as waterboarding. It's a method by which a person is strapped to a board or to a bed where their hands and legs are tied down and water is poured over their airwaves, which are blocked by this water. The sensation that's felt is that you're drowning even though you're not submerged. It was a way to get people to recant or to accept that they were Muslims or they were heretics or they were Jews or whatever they were. This technique was used by the Japanese against US GIs, prisoners of war, and these Japanese soldiers were successfully cross-prosecuted for war crimes and executed. This technique was used also by the Viet Cong on American soldiers and vice versa, and prosecutions took place again for war crimes and they were successfully prosecuted. This technique was used recently in the War on Terror against a man called Abu Zubaydah, who's held now in Guantanamo Bay, who was waterboarded over 83 times in a secret location run by the CIA, and another man called Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who's allegedly the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks, who was waterboarded over 180 times. During the Bush administration, they said, and the legal advisors to the Bush administration said, that if it's not severe physical impairment, organ failure, or death, it's not torture. These were the most senior legal advisors to the Bush administration. Therefore, according to the Bush government, waterboarding was not torture. It was enhanced interrogation techniques. Now, why this is all important is this. The man who heads the Charity Commission, William Shawcross, believes in, justifies and supports the torture of the water. The man who is in charge of determining whether an organization like CAGE, which is populated with and supports numerous Guantanamo Bay prisoners, the head of this organization, the Charity Commission, agrees and says that Guantanamo is a good thing. He sought to regulate and to stop the support of this organization, knowing his political views, his despicable support and endorsement of not just torture and Guantanamo, but also the Iraq wars, as we've heard earlier on. How it could be that this man, this torture supporter, heads the Charity Commission, which now is spearheading numerous investigations into Muslim charities, is beyond belief. And the only way that this person and this situation could be challenged and even brought to the fore is because CAGE challenged the Charity Commission. Of course, these views are known. The views of William Shawcross have been explained in several articles he's written for the Huffington Post and have been explained in The Guardian also. He has an article called Justice and the Enemy, the Case for Guantanamo. That is why this man can, with a straight face, look at an organization CAGE and say that this is an awful organization. Begg and CAGE are an awful organization who are experts in the art of lawfare. Experts in the art of lawfare. What is lawfare? How could it be that a person who has been tortured and abused and raped and punched and kicked and stripped and cruelly, inhumanely and degradingly treated, when he seeks justice in the only place that he can, i.e. the courts of law, he is told, or we are told, that this man is using a form of asymmetrical warfare called lawfare. And he's allowed to get away with it. The reason why? Because he's appointed himself. He's been appointed by the Prime Minister. The same Prime Minister who says that the Muslim community is incubating within its masajid, within its mosques and its other places of worship, extremism. The same Prime Minister who can say with a straight face, looking at the opposite side of the House of Commons, that the leader of the opposite party is a threat to national security. Well, if that's the case with the Labour Party, then, to coin a phrase, we're all screwed. How could it be that this very man, this William Shawcross, who is the head of the Charities Commission, who also used to be, as Abdul Wahid explained, a board member of the Henry Jackson Society, whose most famous advocate says, and I quote, that conditions for Muslims must be made harder across the board in Europe. Douglas Murray says this, and now Islamophobic attacks just in London alone, in the capital, have gone up 70%. You've seen the vile type of attacks taking place on our buses, on our public transport places. But it's coming from a particular place. The atmosphere has been created. William Shawcross, have no doubt in your mind, is quite happy, based upon his justification of Guantanamo, for somebody like Shakir Amr to remain in that place for 14 years without charge or trial, while his children are born and grow up in this very city. It is absolutely outrageous that such a man can seek to govern an organization like Cage that has been fighting from the outset to support the prisoners in Guantanamo. Essentially, what this means, as far as I'm concerned, is that something's been allowed to happen that we can all see is unbelievable, and yet nobody's had the gumption to do or say anything about it. Well, Cage is here. We're here, right again. The reason why they don't like Cage consistently, it isn't because of a mistake we made about Amwazi. It wasn't because we said that he may have become radicalized because of his treatment by the security services. Of course we know that ISIS was responsible for giving the order and executing those innocent victims, two of whom were Muslims who had already taken the Shahada. Cage put its hands up that it made a mistake. But the reason we ask and say is that then what about the other accountability we've been calling for all of these years? What about the fact that the government was involved, was complicit in the torture of its own citizens, including me, including Shakir Amr, including Binyam Mohammed, including a whole host of other people from around the world, from Morocco to Libya to Pakistan to Bangladesh to America and everywhere else? What about that? Where's your accountability for that? Aren't we the Muslims who say the famous saying of Umar al-Khattab, "Hasib nafsak qabla an tuhasib." Hold yourself to account before you're accounted. Where's your accountability? That's the one word constantly that we've been consistently calling for again and again and again. Your government, past and present, have been involved in crimes of false imprisonment, of torture, of rendition, and we have seen no justice at all. So what's the point of pointing the finger at Cage consistently? The other important thing, dear brothers and sisters, is this, is that it is important to see Cage as an organization that not just empowers the Muslim community, it empowers way beyond. You've got the Third Sector Charity magazine that has said that Cage has done every one of us a service by taking the Charity Commission to court. It has protected all of us from being able to support who we want, how we want, when we want. We have said that it was sad, and it was sad for me to hear this because I didn't know that somebody from Cage had been affected in this way, that he was looking for somebody to stand with him, to share that news at that point. But there was nobody there. There was nobody there for him to share that news with. And that's sad. It's not sad for us, it's not sad for Cage, it's not sad for the brother, it's sad for the community. Wake up, dear brothers and sisters, because it's crucial. One thing I want to mention here, just so you understand the level of undue influence that was exercised by various people. Not only did it happen from the ministers and Theresa Villas, the Northern Ireland Secretary, and others who were trying to get involved in trying to vilify Cage, but they were also writing to charities, Muslim charities connected to Cage, trying to take the very carpet, the very ability for us to stand from underneath our feet. And this was part of an email that was sent. The trustees should exercise extreme caution before making any payments or entering into an arrangement or association with Cage. As a result of statements made by Cage, the Commission cannot see how the trustees can comply with their legal duties if there is any future funding or association between the charity and Cage. They're effectively saying to everybody, do not work with this organization. Do not support it. Do not let this organization, which has continuously held us and the government to account, let it fold over. But alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as he says, يُرِيدُونَ لِيُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَاللَّهُ مُتِمُّ نُورِهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. That they wish to extinguish the light of Allah with their mouths. And Allah protects His light however He wishes, even though the pagans detest it. So if there's one message I want to finally give out of all of this, is that it is important for us to be unified, particularly at a time when we're being targeted continuously. Cage is in the forefront, literally in the forefront. Not only do we get our accounts closed down, we get targeted, we get imprisoned, we get tortured. We've been at every level you can imagine. From Schedule 7, the easy end, right to being detained and tortured. We've gone through the lot of it, and we're still standing strong by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's something for the community to be proud of. To say that we have a few people amongst us. Maybe we can't do what they do, but we are there as their support. So the final words of this, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, as Allah says, hold on to the rope of Allah, be not disunited. وَجَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا وَآخِرُ دَعْوَانَا أَنِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ.